One of the things that I've been hearing people say the most recently is, how can you love somebody and vote to hurt them? Or something along those lines. Like you would never do anything for someone that you care about. And I think there's a lot of different reasons why people might vote for someone who you perceive as hurting you or who might actually be hurting you. One of the things that stands out to me is the abortion problem. And I think the abortion issue is something that no one can look at rationally, and there's good reason for that. I mean, it's really difficult from either side to perceive allowing for or taking away the rights to abortion as anything other than a difficult issue. However, I think that in this case, it's more complicated than just it hurting someone or not hurting someone. For example, to liberal people, it might be perceived as hurting them to take away the rights to abortion, but that in general does not seem to be what the Republican Party wants to do. It seems to be trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've been trying to keep up with the issue, but it seems to be trying to make it more of a states' rights issue, and kind of having the government not have any say over medical freedom. I think the thing that people are pointing to is that IVF and other fertility treatments are not included in any bans, and also that ectopic pregnancies are not included in any bans, and that is true. However, on the other side, it has been made harder to get a lot of those procedures because people, specifically doctors, are worried about the consequences if they accidentally damage someone's pregnancy, and in that way killing or injuring the baby, and then being charged for murder. So while on one hand the Republicans might not be necessarily trying to take away women's rights, on the other side they are seemingly making it more difficult for women to get the medical care that they need. I think that on both sides there is a small group of people that are very vocal that say, on one side, the Republicans are trying to take away all of women's rights. Like, women are never going to be allowed to get an abortion. Women are no longer going to be allowed to vote. It's essentially the Handmaid's Tale. I'm sure you've seen a lot of images regarding the Handmaid's Tale. And I know it's really easy to look at it and think it's the end of the world, women are losing all of their rights, women will never be allowed to do anything. Also, all of the lovely people online who are saying, my body, my choice, which is fine, but then on the other side, people saying, your body, my choice, which is disgusting. And I think most of us reasonable, rational people can agree that that is disgusting. I know that they are saying it primarily to be inflammatory, but right now is not the time to be inflammatory. Right now is the time to be understanding and caring. I think that there's a lot of people on the side for literally banning abortion who believe that abortions are a sin, that you are killing an unborn child, an innocent, that it's akin to murder, and that in no situation should it be allowed to kill a child. And I understand this argument. My mom actually falls into that argument, even though she is a lifelong Democrat, and I don't think that is necessarily a partisan issue. I think there's a lot of people on both sides that find it abhorrent to kill a child. I don't think that's a very controversial statement. But then where the lines are drawn are somewhere in the middle between how many weeks is it acceptable to have an abortion, how many weeks is it unacceptable to have an abortion. And what Trump said at the debate about late-term abortions, we all know he was being dramatic. We all know that that is ridiculous. But I think that a lot of things that people are saying about just in general later term abortions is not as out of control. It's not as out of the realm of possibility. So that's just one example of a issue where someone might think that someone is trying to hurt them. If you love your sister and you are a man, how could you vote for someone who is trying to take away her right to have an abortion if she is somehow jeopardized by the abortion? A lot of people would, by not getting an abortion, sorry, I think a lot of people would say that Republicans aren't doing that, and so that is why they'd vote for that. I think a lot of people would say, well, it's God's will, which is fair. But I think there's a lot of reasons besides just, oh, they don't love you. They actually hate you, and that's why they're voting the way they're voting. So, I don't know. I feel like in terms of that issue, none of us are logical. And in terms of issues like gay rights, which is another issue that a lot of people are talking about in terms of they're taking away people's rights. Republicans hate gay people, so gay people no longer be allowed to get married. They're going to try to stop that from happening, all of that. A lot of people would say Republicans don't hate gay people. There are a lot of gay Republicans. And this is true. On the other hand, there is a long history of the Catholic Church specifically hating gay people, and there's a lot of derogatory language in conservative media surrounding gay people. And while there are gay conservatives, I think that there is a long way to go in the Republican conservative camp in terms of accepting and welcoming gay people. The same goes for the trans community, although they have a lot more work in terms of acceptance to be done. I think the majority of rhetoric that I've seen online about hurting people or hating people is all about the trans community. I don't even want to repeat a lot of it because it's very much not what I believe in. But I just think people in general, broadly, are inherently selfish. They find it hard to see beyond their issues and their lives. I've been trying very hard to understand the conservative and Republican arguments surrounding this, and it is so hard for me. I understand that people see trans people as having mental illness. I understand that there's a lot of different belief systems surrounding that, a lot of which are religious, a lot of which are just prejudiced. I think a lot of people just have a lot of fear. For example, one of the things I see a lot in the conservative Republican camp is I don't want men following me into bathrooms. And honestly, I don't really usually in public bathrooms take a lot of time to look at the people around me. I think that's kind of creepy. Especially female bathrooms, we do not have a lot of shared spaces. We have the mirror, we have the sink, and we have individual stalls. It's not, in my opinion, it's not as bad, and I really do not think that the average trans person is going to not be trying to fit in enough where you would perceive them to be a man. And if you do, you're just rude. That is my opinion. I also think that I understand that fear. I think that a lot of women have trauma surrounding men, male-bodied people. I know I do. And so I think if you are that afraid, you should be in therapy. I am. But I also understand why you would be worried about the larger issue. I think gay people in general are being more accepted into conservative spaces due a lot to, I think, predominantly the outspoken gay commentators and people in government who are making a stand for queer people in politics, which is wonderful. But I think that we don't have as much acceptance in that direction that we have for trans people as we have for gay people. And that really needs to change. I think that I have a unique perspective because I am in one of the most liberal states, not the whole state as we discussed in the last episode, but in general, in the area that I'm in, there are a lot of queer people. At my college, there were a lot of queer people, so I am not I am not taken aback when I see someone who is gay or who is trans. However, like immigrants or something, if you live in a community where you never encounter them, I can see why that would be a little bit jarring. But I would encourage you to step outside of yourself and try to see those people and as people in need of acceptance and in a lot of ways compassion. Because even if you disagree with their lifestyle, honestly, it's none of your business and leave them alone. I think that you want to be left alone for the way you live your life. I think that a lot of Democrats are completely fine ignoring the way religious people live, unless it interferes with their beliefs. I think that while believing that government should not interfere with anyone's life, that really does mean everyone. And if you say medical freedom, it can't just mean freedom to not get vaccines. It should be medical freedom to do whatever you want with your body. I just think there's a lot of hypocrisy to do with freedom. Freedom from the government, freedom from other people, freedom to be yourself, freedom to do what you want with yourself. I think in terms of voting, in terms of your own self-interest, I think everyone is inherently selfish, and I think that it's easy to look at someone and say, they hate me because they voted for someone who doesn't like me, and who will try to take away my rights. But that is an oversimplification. I think that in general, it's not that they hate you, it's that they do not understand you, it's that they are not trying to understand you, and that maybe they won't take away all of your rights, but we need to talk to people, we need to put ourselves out there in order to eventually make this country a place for everyone and not just for people we agree with. Because we are never going to agree with everyone in this country. We are never going to be a monolithic society. And so in order to feel like we all belong, we have to understand that everyone comes from a different place, a different background, a different understanding. And they cannot always vote for your self-interest. They will always vote for their own self-interest. And while that might feel bad, and you're not required to stay friends with everyone that you disagree with. I like to, because I like to talk to people I disagree with because it helps me understand people better. But if you don't like people you don't have to be friends with them, and I'm not forcing you to, and that goes on both sides. However, if you choose to stay friends with those people, you will have some of the most rewarding and beautiful conversations, and you might end up finding ways in which you agree and ways that you disagree and ways that you can compromise. And I think that that is how we will build a more united states, because we can all talk to each other openly, honestly, lovingly, and we can all try to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. I think that right now, with all of the anger that is going on in the world, I think it's hard for us to be our best selves, but I think that we all make each other better through conversation, through shared understanding, and I think that the only way forward will be together.